keep on keeping on, we went ahead and added validation on the front end, so we cannot submit incorrect data as best we could. We are now going to add validation on the back end. So when the data enters the API, we're going to sanitize and validate it, okay? We're going to use NestJS's class validator and class transformer, okay? So we're gonna start with installing that. Okay, so I am going to open up a new terminal. I'm going to cd into my API folder and I'm going to paste that in. Okay, I also am going to need to install sanitize HTML. So I'm going to install that at the same time. All right. So the idea is that when we send our form to the back end, okay, we have this sign up DTO, all right. We want to have NestJS take a look and see how closely it matches this DTO, and we want it to transform the data to match it if it doesn't already, and we want it to error and return an error to the front end if it's incorrect, okay? So we are going to use the validation pipe to do this, all right? So these are just kind of going over some of the built-in default options, all right? So we are going to add a global pipe, which means that is going to ensure that all endpoints are protected from receiving incorrect data. All right, so we are going to find our main.ts for that, and we're going to add it. Then we're going to import and save. Okay, we're going to kind of scroll through the rest of this article because there's one more thing that we're going to need to add, okay? But if you look, right, so we're going to create a DTO here. So we'll need to edit ours because right now we're using type. Let's go ahead and do export class, sign up DTO, okay? Then we are going to have here, as you can see, you add validation rules above each portion of the class, okay? So if we are doing this, then we would say we want is not empty. All right, and then let's import it. We are going to import it from class validator. All right, because we do not want the name to be empty. So if the name is empty on this request here, then this request is going to error, all right? We want this to be an email, okay? So if it's not an email, then it's going to error. We want username to not be empty. And there's a lot of these decorators, so you can kind of go through and figure out which one makes the most sense for all of your data coming in. Okay, so we have that we want the name, username, and password to not be empty and want the email to be an email. All right, so that is class validator. Okay, as you can see, if a request hits our endpoint with an invalid email, then we're going to get a bad request. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that with Postman. Okay, so I am going to let's do a blank username. Okay, let's go to the API and then I'm going to press send. You can see it says username should not be empty, bad request. Okay, if I have something in the username here and I press send, then it sends and it gets there. So it's going to intercept the request on its way in, check that the data that's being sent in with the request is valid, okay? And it's going to error if it's not valid, and then it's going to continue if it is valid, okay? So for example, if we get rid of this .com, we're going to see an error that the email must be an email, okay? So that part is all good. The next thing that we want to do is we want to transform our data, okay? So we are gonna go ahead and keep looking down. All right, so we could strip properties that are like additional properties that are sent with whitelist true. We're not gonna do that right now. Okay, this is the next part that we need. So payloads coming in over the network are just plain objects, okay? The validation pipe can transform them into the types of their DTO class, okay? So what we wanna do is we want to set this to true. So we're going to do that on our main. We're going to, within this validation pipe, we're going to add the transform true property. All right. And now we can go ahead and see how that works once we start adding our sanitize HTML. All right. Let's look through these docs now. All right. So the way that we're going to import it is with this line. Okay, then we are going to go ahead and take a look. So it looks like sanitize HTML is a function, and we can pass in the text or data that we want to sanitize, and it will do it for us. So that's pretty nice to see, right? Clean data pops out of sanitizing dirty data. Okay, so we are going to want to add this to our class here. All right, so let's take a look. Anytime you are going to show input data on the screen is where you would want to use this, okay? So I'm going to use the transform method here, and I'm going to say params sanitize HTML params.value. All right, then I'm going to import this from class transformer. Not sure why it's not popping up, but that's okay. All right, so now if I send in a name that has HTML in it, right? Any tags that are not allowed or attributes are not allowed, it's going to clean it up for me, okay? And then it's going to transform, because we put this property transform true, it's going to actually change the data. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's say my name, I'm going to add a script tag before my name. And I'm going to say console log. Doesn't like my quotes. All right, if I send it in, you see my name is just Callie Stoska. Because this transform is taking a look at what's in this name spot, it's looking for the HTML tags that are not allowed, and it's cleaning them up. So it ends up transforming my data to this. If I were to not have this transform true, okay, and I send this through, okay, it's going to not transform the data, and it's still going to have the data be this way, right? So we need to make sure that we have the transform true in there, so that way it actually cleans it up for use when we want to save it in our database, okay? So let's go ahead and add this transform to the rest of them. So the email, the username, and I'm not going to do the password because it's not going to ever show up on screen, and I don't want to mess with people's passwords. So looks like that's working there. Let's go ahead and add this to the email. Cleaned it up for us, that's nice. All right, let's go ahead and add this to our username. And perfect, it's cleaning it up for us. All right. So now that we tested it on Postman and on the back end, we can go ahead and take a look at our React app. All right, you're not going to be able to test everything as well on the front end because we added validation there. So like I can't send a blank name. If I try to send blank things, it's going to catch it before it goes to the back end to error. Okay, but I can go ahead and let's just do test at test.com, test. Okay, so now let's add onto the name some HTML. All right, and we're going to send it, and you can see that it cleaned up our name for us. Okay, perfect. So now if we were to display so if we go and look at the response that came back, I don't think we're returning. Yeah, we're not actually returning anything, but we could. So let's just do, return sign up DTO. All right, let's refresh this. So we're gonna do test. All right, let's add HTML. Okay, and then we're going to submit. If we go and look at the data now, you can see that it cleaned it up. So it won't end up on my front end. Okay, perfect. Let's go to our user story, and I'm going to say that we sanitized and validated our data when it entered the API. All right, see you in the next video.